Welcome everybody to this gear video, and today I'm going to be reviewing this, which is the Canon Powershot Zoom. It's a very small, lightweight zoom monocular. It takes stills photos and also HD video. So this product is ideal for spotting wildlife. So if you see something that's reasonably far away, then you can zoom in on it, you can have a better look, maybe you can ID it if you weren't too sure before. The first thing you can see is just how small and lightweight this is. This is something you could carry with you anywhere. You can easily put in your pocket. It's not something you need to think about whether to carry it or not. You just simply take it with you. Really easy just to put up to your eye, and straight away you can start spotting. Now it's got a little zoom button on the top. It will start off at 100mm, pretty wide field of view. You press it once and it will go to 400mm. Press it again and it will go straight to 800mm. Now there's no way that you can have anything in between that. It's not a gradual zoom. Basically tap it 3 times. It'll go 100, 400, 800. And from 100 to 400mm is an optical zoom, but from 400 to 800mm is a digital zoom. The storage media is a micro SD card, so there's a little door here. Maybe I should take my gloves off. Little door there, micro SD card goes in there, and next to it you've got another slot for charging, and it's charged via a USB-C cable. In terms of your stills photography, there's a few things to mention. There are 2 different focus options, so you can have one single focus point or you can have a tracking focus. You can shoot at 10 frames per second, and also there is the option for exposure compensation. Now the viewfinder, the EVF, I find pretty good. That refreshes at 60 frames per second, and you've also got the little diopter there underneath which you can adjust to your eyesight. And if you're doing video, then it's at 1080p and it's at 25 frames per second. Now I don't think you can actually get any sound out of this when you play it back. When you play it back on your computer, you will get the sound. Now to get into the menus, you've got a couple of buttons here on the bottom, and then you've got a zoom button and a menu button on the top. So everything in the menus is operated in some way by those buttons, and that includes the playback. However, there is no separate button for the playback. There's a buzzard just landed and it keeps shouting, so hopefully it's not too distracting. There it goes. So I've been taking this out into the field over the last week or so, when I've been out and about with the camera, just testing it out. And one of the things is the stability, still there. It's got the 4-axis image stabilization, and it's not too bad. I'd say, like if you zoom in, if you're on 100, I think it's pretty good. And then even at 400, it's not too bad. It's when you zoom into 800, it does look, you know, really pretty shaky to me. Now you could just use one hand. I used 2, and I found a good way of holding it was actually with my elbows kind of further out. I just found that I got decent stability for me holding it that way. And in terms of the video, I'd say pretty similar really. You know, 400 was much easier. 400mm was much easier to work with the video. It's easier to hand hold. At 800mm, I just found it to be really, really shaky. I did have a Kestrel hovering, and I found it pretty tough to stay on that, even though it's in one place. So yeah, feeling very, very, very shaky at 800mm. Now in terms of focus, it was reasonable at times in bright sunlight. I'd say at 400mm it wasn't too bad. 800mm it definitely struggled more. I did get a fair amount of misses in terms of the focus at 400 and 800mm where it didn't lock on, and again that was even in bright sunlight, so it did seem a little bit kind of inconsistent. Now in terms of the image quality on stills photos, what was the image quality like? Well, it is a small sensor, and it's 12 megapixels, so I wouldn't expect to get the best photos out of it at all. When you get to a 400mm, you can see that drop off, and the image quality is just not very good at all. When you get to 800mm, which is the digital zoom, it just gets even worse. I have to say, taking a shot at 800mm with this, I thought the image quality was, you know, pretty bad, and for me, I'd say unusable. Just in terms of overall clarity, sharpness and noise. These were taken in bright sunlight, and you don't have any control over the aperture. It's either f5.6 or it's usually going to be f6.3. I think when you zoom in further, I think it's always f6.3, so you've no control over that, and you can't really change anything else in terms of shutter speed and ISO. It's all done automatically. So even in the bright sunlight, that is the image quality I was getting, which is not very good at all. And I did want to test it in low light as well, because I thought it would probably be worse, and it was. And again, the video quality, I'd say not absolutely fantastic. Again, at 800mm, you know, it does look like quite a drop off in quality. I'll put some video up on the screen here with the information so you can decide for yourself. And a few other issues that I found with this as well that made it difficult. One was the exposure compensation. So yes, there is exposure compensation, but you have to go through the menus to access it. There's no quick way of doing that, so you'd have to go in and change it and then come back out. It's the way you access the menu and select things, go in and come out of it, which is all done by the two buttons underneath, and then you've got zoom and menu on the top. So maybe that's something you just get used to over time, but I did find that difficult. And also related to that is the playback button. So there's no separate playback button. So when you want to play back your image or your video that you've just taken, you have to go into the menu to go to play. So if you're somewhere else, you've got to cycle through everything to get to that play button. So I think that would probably be one of the main improvements on this, which might be possible, is just to have one simple button to play back. And another issue is the battery, which I mentioned earlier, that you can only charge it externally through the cable, which means you've only ever got a certain amount of battery life to play with. Now I think Canon maybe said it lasted 60 minutes continuous shooting, something like that. One of the sessions I did, I took it out, it was out for about 2 or 3 hours, and I was just doing some general video, general photos, not heavily shooting, and at the end of that period, the battery started to flash red, so it's probably about 3 hours and it was done. So that's really going to restrict you if you're out all day. You'd have to think about how you're going to charge it, maybe a power bank, something extra, maybe you charge it in the car. And another little simple thing I think would just be to have something like a little cover on the front, because it's really easy to put your finger in front or to get you know, get your thumbprint on there. And also I think if they had like a flange, is that the best word? Something around the outside, and then you'd know when you feel it, you'd know that your finger had gone too far, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think if you made like just a simple little window in some way, I think that would be better. Also, there's no way that you can put this on anything to support it. So if you did want to use this for your stills or your video, you're having to hand hold all the time, which can be difficult, obviously, again, at those bigger magnifications. So if there's just some way you could attach it to something, or maybe a simple screw fit, I think that would make quite a big difference. So what are my overall thoughts on this Canon Monocular? The fact that it's so lightweight and small, just so easy to carry around, and it is a useful, practical tool. I do like the zoom actually, I quite like that you just simply press it once, goes from 100 to 400 to 800. I personally really like that. If you're buying this because you think it's going to be a good little camera to carry around and you can zoom in and take photos, then I think you're going to be disappointed, because the image quality, you know, is pretty poor in my opinion. I was quite disappointed. However, I do think this is a really good product in terms of spotting wildlife, for having something with you when you want to zoom in, get a better view of something, maybe make a positive ID. So if you're not as bothered about image quality or video quality, and you just want it for those purposes, maybe that's part of your job, maybe you are recording, doing research for example, then this I'd say is very, very useful. The 800mm zoom, you know, is quite a powerful zoom, and being able to zoom on something from a distance and get a good view of it is always helpful. So those are basically my thoughts. I don't think it's very good for image quality, but I do think it's a good product to have for spotting and recording wildlife. I'll put a link in the description below and on the screen as well, directly to Canon, so if you want to find out more about this, you can do. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.